الله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا ومولانا أبي القاسم محمد أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين المنتجبين المنتخبين الميامين لا سيما على الإمام المنتظر والحجة الثاني عشر واللعنة الدائمة الباقية على أعدائهم أجمعين من يوم ظلمهم إلى قيام يوم الدين. أما بعد، فقد قال الله سبحانه وتعالى في القرآن الحكيم: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ضرب لنا مثلا ونسي خلقه قال من يحيي العظام وهي رميم قل يحييها الذي أنشأها أول مرة وهو بكل خلق عليم. صلوات على محمد وعلى محمد. I would like to admit two things in the beginning. There was a very famous writer, Dale Carnegie. In his book on the art of oratory, he has mentioned and advised all the orators not to mention any such things. If they are not feeling well, they should not mention in the beginning of their speech. Or if any problem is existing, they should not mention. But really I would like to confess that I was overconfident that I will tackle this jet lag and it won't be a problem. That is why I committed for this program. In the very first day, I just arrived last night, and I thought I will be in position to overcome all these problems. But still I am feeling, and I am suffering from this jet lag. And I hope, inshallah, I will manage to complete this talk without sleeping, inshallah. I request you to pray for me for that. And the second thing that I would like to confess is that English is not my first language at all. English is my second language. Last year I was delivering few lectures in English there at JVU. Majority of the listeners were Khojas. So I said there at least I am confident that my English is better than your Urdu. But here even I can't say this because most of them here are Ahl Zaban. So even my English is not better than you and not my Urdu is better than you. I have errors in both English and Urdu as well. So in advance I would like to seek apology for this, inshallah. What about the topic? The topic is life after death. Now, of course, the first question is there any life after death? Of course, there are three answers. Basically, there are two answers. Number one, no, there is no life after death. Those who are materialistic, they do not believe in God and anything spiritual. They are of the opinion that there is nothing like a life after death. Once a person dies, then everything is over. Even Quran explains the view of these people in many verses. And of course, Almighty Allah condemns this opinion and this ideology. There is a famous share of Babar Baesh Kosh ke Alam Dubara Nees, that enjoy in this world and there is no life after death. Everything that you can enjoy is in this world and there is nothing to be enjoyed after death. So do whatever you want and do not impose any limitation on yourself in this world. But of course this is the opinion which Islam does not agree. As far as Islam is concerned, and like Islam there are many religions which support this idea that yes, of course there is life after death. In the case of Islam, life really and in real meaning it starts after death, once a person passes away from this world. We can say that according to Islam, when a person dies, he actually does not die, but he is transferred to another world where he will see the consequences, he will face the consequences of what he did in this mortal world. Now, another question arises, then what is the relation of this world with the life hereafter? And you will see there are different philosophies, and the summary of these opinions are presented by Shahid Mutahari in his work Falsafa-e Shahadat, the philosophy of martyrdom, in which he explains that there are mainly three philosophies regarding this. Number one, that this life is like a cage. You can't do anything in this world, and this is like a cage. And there is another philosophy in which the philosophers say that this world is everything. Of course, when there is no life after death, then this world is everything. As I mentioned, according to many atheists and many those people who do not believe in God and any spirituality, they say when there is nothing existing after death, then what are you talking about? The relationship of this world with the hereafter. There is nothing like hereafter. Anything after death does not exist. But what about Islam? Islam says no. There is a relationship between this world and the life after death, and this relation is the relation of like a farmer who tries. Kindly recite a salawat. Muhammad wa. And this relationship is like all the hard work of a farmer. Like he sows the seed in this world, and then he is going to see the fruit in the hereafter. Ad-dunya mazra'atul akhirah. Dunya akhirat ki खेती है. You will put all your hard work here, and then you will see the result and the fruit in the life after death. Amirul Mu'minin Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salatu wassalam in Nahjul Balagha explains this thing. The world is a place of truth for him who confronts it with truthfulness. It is a house for being free of want for him who gathers provisions from it and stores for his next life. It is a place of awareness for him who takes advice from it. It is the mosque of the friends of God. Now this is very important. This word. It is the mosque of the friends of God, a place of worship for the angels, where God's inspiration is sent down, and a trade market for God's friends. Matjaro awliya illah. This is a market where a person who believes in God can invest, and ultimately he will get the profit in the world after his death. Now, this clearly means that Islam is of the opinion, Quran and Masumin, they explain this world as a bridge. A person is on this bridge and ultimately is going to see the destination after his death. Another question regarding, is there any logical reason for resurrection? Why should there be Qayamat? Why should there be the whole process after death? In Quran and in the traditions and ahadith of Masumin, we find numerous reasons which are really justified. Even the logic supports these arguments. Number one, this mortal life is not the reasonable object of our final goal. This cannot be called a final goal. Can it be a reasonable object of such a complex creation like human being? This complex creation of human being, can he be for this world only, where he puts all his efforts, he faces hardships, he does all the efforts, and after he dies, and there is nothing after his death. Now see, if this is the case, really a person should commit suicide. Why should he face all the hardships when ultimately he is going to die without any fruit? Why should he face all the hardships, and why should he be facing such, he should be leading such an anxious life, a life full of worries? He should commit suicide. But no, according to Islam, these hardships and this the pain will definitely result in something very good. Secondly, for justice, as I mentioned in my majlis also, we are with many limitations in this mortal world. We cannot do justice. It is not possible for us. Even if we are doing something in the name of justice, it is very, very limited. It is very confined. And if we want to see the real justice, we have to believe in the life after death. And especially when it is supported by all the religions, namely Christianity, Judaism and Islam. When Islam supports such an idea and of course presents a list of arguments supporting this belief, then there is no reason to refuse the Aqidah Qayamat. And then third thing, that God's mercy is infinite. It's not limited. If we believe in a point when a person dies and then there is nothing after death, that means we are limiting the mercy of Almighty. Whereas the mercy of Almighty is infinite. It should not stop on a certain point. It should continue even after death. What is the reason? Why are we willing to say that God's mercy will stop when we die? No, it will continue. And Almighty explains this thing in the Quran, and Masumin also supports in their traditions and the ahadith. There is a very famous objection by many who do not believe in Qayamat. And it is mentioned in Surah Yasin as well as in many other verses as well. It is mentioned, ضَرَبَ لَنَا مَثَلًا وَنَسِيَ خَلْقًا. Even Almighty presents this objection of those who do not believe in Qiyamah and then criticizes. Almighty says in Surah Yasin, it's a very famous verse, ضَرَبَ لَنَا مَثَلًا وَنَسِيَ خَلْقًا قَالَ مَنْ يُحْيِي الْعِظَامَ وَهِيَ رَمِيمٌ قُلْ يُحْيِيهَا الَّذِي أَنْشَأَهَا أَوَّلَ مَرَّةٍ. And he, the unbeliever, makes comparison for us and forgets his own creation. He asks, who will give life to the rotten bones? Say, he who created them for the first time will give them life again. He has knowledge of every creature. Why are you doubting? Why is there any doubt regarding how God is going to do all this? When he has created a person from nothing, he can create and give him a new life from these rotten bones. With the help of this verse, we can understand another dimension of Aqidah Qayamat, and which is that this Qayamat will be spiritual as well as physical. That means Ma'ad-e Jismani. Now there is an objection. Many believe in Aqidah Qayamat, but they say that it will be spiritual only. It will not be in the case of body. Our soul will be there in paradise or in hell, but as far as our body is concerned, this will not exist after our death. Now, if you analyze this verse of Surah Yasin, it's very clear that Almighty says the objection actually is about the bones, that these are the rotten bones. Allama Sayyid Ali Naqi Naqsan Sahib Alallahu Maqamahu once mentioned in his speech that if there was no concept of Ma'ad Jismani or body, it was only the Aqidah Ruhani, Ma'ad Ruhani only, then Almighty Allah should have said this, that you have not understood my word, you have not understood my point. I am not talking about the body, I am talking about the spirit and soul only. And why are you objecting and why are you questioning about the rotten bones? There is no need of questioning about the bones. Since I am not claiming that I will give life to these bones and this physical appearance, then why are you objecting about the body and the bones? But no, what Almighty says, I repeat, they make comparison for us and forget about their own creation. They say, who will give life to the rotten bones? Say, he who created them for the first time will give them life again. He has knowledge of every creature. Since he has got the knowledge, then there is no problem for Almighty to give the life second time. And there is another verse in Surah Qayamat which also implies towards this Aqidah Ma'ad Jismani, in which Almighty says, do they not see that Allah who created the heavens and the earth, now in this ayat Almighty says in the Surah Qayamat, does man think that we cannot assemble his bones once again? Yes, we are able to make the very tips of their finger. Almighty has no problem to make these fingertips once again. Although we know that fingerprints do have their significance and it's very complicated. But Almighty says that it's not a problem for Allah because He has got the knowledge of everything. Number one, knowledge, and number two, power. When these two things are there, then who will stop Almighty from doing all these things? These are the two important factors. A person has got knowledge but does not have any power. Can he do? No. Even if a scientist, he has got knowledge, but he does not have resources. Can he make atom bomb? He can't. But he has got knowledge and he knows how to do this. And secondly, he has got all the resources. Then he is in position to do whatever he wants, whatever the knowledge he has, then he can practically implement his knowledge with the help of all the resources. What in the case of Almighty? He has knowledge, yes. He has power, yes. Then why can't he make the human being once again? Why can't he give the life to the rotten bones once again? There is no problem for Almighty. So these are the two important factors. Then another thing, are we in position in this mortal world to understand all the complications of the life after death? What is paradise? What is hell? What are the details? What are the juz'iyat, as it is called in Arabic? Are we in position in this world to understand in detail about Qayamat, Jannat, Jahannam? No. Of course, in general we can understand what actually the idea of Qiyamah is all about. What is going to happen there? Justice will take place there in its real spirit and its real sense. Okay, this is one thing. But what about the details? We can understand the idea of paradise and Jannat. Okay, yes. But what about the details of paradise? Almighty Allah in Quran and in Hadith Qudsi, I would like to quote the Hadith Qudsi first, in which Almighty says, I have prepared for my virtuous servants bounties that no eye has ever seen, no ear has ever heard, and no heart has ever comprehended. And there is an ayah of Quran in which Almighty says, no one knows what delights of the eyes, the real bliss that gives most satisfaction, are kept hidden for them as reward for their good deeds. So of course we see in Quran there are many bounties mentioned, that you will get the fruits and you will get the gardens and you will get the clean wives and you will get the mansions, the bungalows, many other things. But what about the details? In this world, are we in position to understand and comprehend the details of all the bounties that we are going to get in the case of being selected as a Jannati? Are we in position to understand fully? No. We are not in position to understand fully. Ayatollah Nasir Makarim Shirazi, in his book, Our Beliefs, and as well as in his tafsir, the commentary, Tafsir al-Namuna, he mentions a very good example, that in this world, our position is like the fetus in the womb of mother. Fetus in the womb of mother. Just imagine if that fetus is given power to speak and understand and to visualize something, and he is in the womb of his mother, and we start talking with that fetus and embryo and try to explain about this world. Are we in position to make him understand all the details of this world? And will he be in position to understand all the details of this world? Now, for example, if we try to explain him what about sky or about rivers and oceans, and he starts questioning what is river and what is this ocean, waves of the water. Now, how are we going to explain him? For example, if we say, yes, look around yourself, you will find some fluid in the womb of your mother. And he says, yes, I am seeing the fluid around myself in the womb of my mother. And we say that, okay, like this fluid, there is a big ocean. And if we ask, what about the sky? And we just look upside and he sees something. Look, there is a ceiling. And like the ceiling, there is a big sky in this world. And if he says, yes, I have understood, what will we say? We will start laughing. We will say, no, you have not understood anything, but at least you have got some idea. So is the case with us in this world. Of course, we are like fetus in the womb of mother. Almighty Allah definitely gives idea in Quran, in Ahadith Masumin has presented these things. But complete idea or the details, it's very difficult to understand in this mortal world. We are not in position to understand completely, but we can have an idea. This is another thing that I would like to discuss, that I wanted to discuss with you. Another thing regarding Qayamat, Aqidah Qayamat. Almighty Allah in Quran explains about the record of all our deeds being kept, like by the angels on shoulders, Kiraman Katibain. There is an angel on right shoulder, there is an angel on left shoulder. Of course we can't see the angels, but Quran Majid supports this idea, this belief, that there are angels who are present on the shoulders and they are writing each and everything. And this record is being kept. How is it recorded? And where is it being kept? We don't know. But as far as the belief presented in Quran is concerned, yes, it is mentioned that records are being kept. And they will be on display on the day of judgment. And the people who have done good deeds and their record is positive, for example, they are the successful candidates, they will be given their record in their right hand. And the people who have not done that good or they have done wrong things, evildoers, they will be given their Namai Amal, their report card on their left hand. And if they will refuse to take the report card and turn their hand towards their back, it will be given from their back. And of course, the person with good report card, a person who has got success will be very happy. And the person who has got his report card which clearly marks him as an unsuccessful or failure, he will not be happy, he will be anxious and worried about his future in the hell. Another question regarding the Anjam. What is the last destination of a person after Qiyamah? Of course, there are two places, paradise and hell. But there is another place which is called Araf. In Quran Majid, there is a 7th chapter with the title of Araf. Of course, there are many other things mentioned in that chapter, but why is it called Araf? Because the place of Araf is mentioned in that chapter, the 7th chapter of Quran. The place is named Araf. This is something in between Jannat and Jahannam, in between paradise and hell. And it is for those, there are many who could not get the correct message, although there is no mistake from their side, but somehow they could not receive, they were not given the right message of Islam, and they could not get that message, and they died. Now where will these people be kept? Not in Jannah, of course, but not in Jahannam also. They will be given a place, something in between Jannah and Jahannam, and it is called Araf. Okay, let me finish my talk at this point, and inshallah I will try to continue the remaining points in the next lecture that is going to be I think next week inshallah. Wa akhiru da'wana anil hamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Any instructions?
We're beginning the Q&A session right now. So if anybody has any questions, you're more than welcome to ask. You can simply put your hand up and I'll pass you the mic.
Maulana, in your speech you mentioned that after death it comes the reward and the punishment. So does the reward and punishment come immediately after death, or does it come after the Day of Judgment? And if it comes before, then will it also come again after? And if it comes again after, is that not, like for example, if it's punishment, are you not then punished twice? Once immediately after death and then once after Qiyamah as well? And is that just?
Fine. A very good question. I wanted to cover this in the next lecture, but okay, since the question has come. There is a concept of barzakh. There is a concept of barzakh. The period before Qiyamah, the person dies and still there is a time in Qiyamah or in the Day of Judgment. What will happen in between this period? This is the period of barzakh. In this barzakh period, there are three cases. Few will be punished, few will be rewarded, and there is a category which will neither be punished or nor be rewarded. They will sleep, a very long sleep, as it is mentioned in Quran. Okay. Now, as far as the question is concerned, that they are getting more punishment, why are they getting more punishment? No, it is not the case. Look, for example, if a person is mu'min, in the case of mu'min, but he does not offer prayers, ultimately due to his iman he is supposed to be in Jannah, he is supposed to be in heaven. But what about all the mistakes that he has committed in this world? He will be punished for all those mistakes. Of course, there is concept of shafa'at also, there is concept of tafazul parwardigar, okay. But principally he should be punished. This punishment can come to an end in the period of barzakh. It's possible that punishment will be over in the period of barzakh, and when the Day of Judgment comes, he will not be given any further punishment, since he has faced all the consequences in the grave or in the period in between. But what in the case of the kuffar and mushrikeen like Pharaoh, like Namrud, like Yazid? What will happen to them? Their punishment will start, of course, in the period of barzakh, and it will continue on the day of judgment, and they will be in the hellfire forever. This is the extreme category I am talking about. Now, are they getting more punishment? No, they are not getting more punishment. Even in this world, we see that there are many things which we do in a minute or in a second, but we have to face the consequences very long. For example, if there is a road accident, how many minutes will take for that accident? Maybe a minute or two. But for that mistake of a minute or two, a person might need to be hospitalized for a month, 2 months, 3 months, even for a year. He can be even paralyzed for the whole life. So there are many things, even in this world, we observe that a mistake can be committed. In Urdu, there is a very good verse. I don't know, will you be in position to understand this? Lamhon ne khata ki thi, sadiyon ne saza pai. A mistake committed in few moments, but you will have to face the punishment for years and years and years and years. In some cases forever, as in the case of mushrikeen. Hope you have understood it. Still, alhamdulillah, I am not sleeping.
Just one quick question. We've heard many descriptions about Jannat, and we've heard many descriptions about Jahannam. You mentioned about Araf. We haven't really heard any descriptions about if it's a good place, bad place, in the middle. Can you just shed some more light about that place, please, and describe it?
Araf?
Yes,
Araf?
please, yes.
Okay. As far as Araf is concerned, one thing is clear, that it, as I mentioned in my talk also, that it is not as blessed as paradise. But there is no punishment in Araf. At least we know this, that there is no punishment in Araf. Okay. It might not be that beautiful as paradise. As far as details are concerned, very honestly, we don't have any details. This is the thing mentioned in Quran. Of course, we are discussing here the Aqidah Qayamat in the light of Quran. What Islam says about Aqidah Qayamat. This is a concept given by Quran. Okay, Araf is a concept, and what? Or really, it is justified. There should be such a place where people who have not done anything wrong of their own, okay, just because they were not given the right message. For example, a person living in the jungle, he born in jungle and he passed away in jungle. He did not come to the city. A person who was born in a desert and he passed away in desert. Of course, he has not done anything wrong. Since he was not given the message, he did not know how to offer the prayers. He did not know anything about Tawheed. He was not given the message of Tawheed. He was not aware of the Vilayat of Mawla Kainat. How will he start believing in the Vilayat of Mawla Kainat? He does not know anything about Hazrat Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Then how will he start believing in the prophethood of the Prophet Muhammad? We cannot expect from that person to start believing in Tawheed since he has not got the message. That is why such category will be, at least they will be placed in Araf. There is a chance that they can get even a better place, but at least they will not be in hell. Again, just try to understand, there is this third category existing in this world. What will happen with these people? Definitely they will not be forced to go in the hell.
Just one announcement before we ask questions. I have some pen and paper here. I'm going to leave it in the middle. If anybody wants to write down the question on the paper, they're more than welcome to. And one request for the kids in the back. Can you guys please come a little forward? So the papers are right here, if anybody wants.
If somebody is in Araf, then is there any way for them to, and they get the knowledge of Islam, then is there any way for them to get to Jannah?
But actually I could not make out what you have said. Zabane yare man Turki nadaram. Kindly repeat your question slowly.
Okay, if somebody is between Jannat and Jahannam,
Okay.
then is there any way, after they learn about Islam, is there any way for them to get to Jannat?
After he has learned Islam,
Yeah.
where will he learn Islam? In this world?
No, in Araf.
In Arab? No, Arab is a destination. It's not the place of learning.
So they can't
The
go.
place of learning is this world. Okay.
Okay.
Somehow they could not get the right message. So at least they should not be in hell. But they are not entitled for paradise as well. Okay? Arab is not a place for learning. Walaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
This is kind of like his question. I was just wondering, how is it fair? They should have a chance to prove themselves. So, are you sure that that's a final destination or just a temporary destination, or do they get a chance to prove themselves?
As I said, there are chances that they can be upgraded. But what about the basic principle? As far as the basic principle is concerned, they should not be punished. This is the basic principle. Yes, they should not be punished.
So they can only...
Now, for example, even in the paradise, there are many levels. Everybody in the paradise is not of the same level. A person might be on the level 1. There is a person on the level 2. A person on the level 3. Will you be in favor to give them chance to be on level 2 in the paradise? No. Everything to be done, everything, if a person wants to get some status, will have to do anything in this world. Somehow, these people, they were not in position to get that right message.
So do they get a chance to prove that they would do something right with that right message?
Okay. They could not get the opportunity, then that is why they are not punished.
I know, but do they get a chance to prove themselves at all, or is it just they stay there and that's it?
Now, as far as the Quranic verses are concerned, okay, they will not be punished, that for sure. Anything beyond that, okay, it is possible, but will it really happen or not, I don't know.
Okay, thank you.
Can we please keep the questions limited to the topic at hand, just so that we stay focused on that?
There is a question, is it necessary that everyone's amal and deeds, good or bad, will be exposed on the day of judgment in front of everyone? Or will hisab just be done in front of Allah? Can we pray and make dua to prevent hisab if we are good practicing Muslims? As far as exposing amal in front of others is concerned, like in this 99th chapter of Quran Majid, Surah Zilzal, a very famous chapter, we read there, مَنْ يَعْمَلْ مِثْقَالَ ذَرَّةٍ خَيْرًا يَرَهُ. If a person does a very small piece of good deed, he will see that. And if he does a very minute wrong thing, even that will be shown in front of. But what about others? Will he be humiliated in front of others also? Yes, there are cases. There are many zalimeen, like Fir'aun, Yazid and many others. They will be humiliated in front of others as well. In the case of others, like maybe practicing Muslim, but due to somehow they could not do that many good things, and they have done wrong things as well. Will they be humiliated? There are chances that Almighty will not create any humiliation for them. There is an exception available. So as far as doing dua is concerned, yes, a person can ask Almighty, request Almighty, make dua that do not humiliate me on the day of judgment. Even such duas do exist in the Mafatil Janan, inshallah. what stage would a newborn baby go to on the day of judgment? Okay. Regarding newly born babies, in the ahadith of Masumin it is mentioned that if we are talking about the babies of Muslims or Mu'minin, they will definitely go to the Jannah, and they will be among the Shafi'een. They will even intercede for their parents also. Another question, is it true that the hellfire is haram for sayyids? Very, very difficult question, very honest. Really very difficult question. I can say something, but it's very difficult to say. Laha ma kasabat wa alaykum ma kasabtum. Every person will face the consequences. In the case of Sadat, we inshallah hope that such a case will not occur. We hope, inshallah. But what? If somebody is doing something wrong, he will have to see the consequences. The basic principle is this. Now, for example, let me give a clarification. What in the case of Prince Karim Aga Khan? Even he can claim that he is Sayyid. What in the case of Jafar Kazzab? The Jafar Kazzab who claimed Imamat after 11th Imam. Even he was a Sayyid. And what about in the case of one of the brothers of Imam Musa Kazim alayhi salam? So there are cases in which we are really in very difficult situation. We are not in position to defend them. So, inshallah, majority of Sadat will be definitely in Jannah. Is it true that for those moments you are significant out of love for Fatima Hussain? Yes, there is a question. Here is a question. Is it true that for those moments who have significant and exceptional amount of love for Hazrat Imam Hussain alayhi salam would not be afflicted by hellfire, those especially that do matam and shed tears for the Mawla? Yes, of course, if they are Isna Ashari, they believe in 12 Imams, they are good mu'min and they do good deeds, definitely they will be in Jannah. There is no question of being punishment. There is no question of punishment.
We have a question here.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
It was like something from the news media.
Okay.
So let's assume there are two people died, who both of them didn't know anything about Islam or our religion or any right path, and they were on any other religion. One was American, an average American, and an average Canadian. So CDC says that average Canadian prefer to live beside a Muslim rather than beside a gay. An average American prefer to live beside a gay rather than beside a Muslim. They both die, where they will go?
They were not Muslims?
They both not Muslims.
They were not Mu'minin?
They were not Mu'minin.
But okay, it appears that one was better than other.
Yeah, the American was thinking that he preferred to live beside a gay rather than a Muslim.
Okay.
And a Canadian average says, I will prefer to live with a Muslim rather than a gay.
Okay.
That's from the CBC.
Okay. Now, one thing, one should understand the criteria. One should understand the criteria. There is Surah Al-Asr, which explains very well what is the criteria, who will go into the paradise. Principally, Wal-Asr innal insana lafi khusrin. Everybody is in loss. Everybody. Even if he claims to be Muslim, regardless of that average Canadian and average American. Even if he is a Muslim, he claims to be Muslim, even he is in loss. Illa alladhina amanu wa amilu salihat. But those who are mu'min, who believe in real faith, wa amilu salihat, and those who perform amal salihat, the good deeds. وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ. And then they do amr bil ma'ruf wa nahy anil munkar as well. They transmit this message to others also. So, for example, if a person, leave this case, even better case, a person who has got very good akhlaq, who is very kind towards his neighbors, who is very kind towards his family, who does charity, who contributes in many projects. But just suppose he is not a mu'min. Will he be given the chance to go inside the paradise? No, not at all. As far as Islam is concerned, Islam is of the opinion that with Iman you are supposed to do amal salihah, and then you are supposed to transmit this message to others as well. If you do this, then you are supposed to be a Jannati, otherwise you are not Jannati. If a person is doing something very good and he knows about Islam and he does not accept Islam, he does not accept Iman, he is not a mu'min. It's just, take this example, if a student works very hard, but he is not admitted in a school, he is not affiliated with any board, will he be given the chance to qualify for any degree? No, he will not be given the chance. Why? He has done very hard, he has worked very hard. But even then, since he is not affiliated with any official board or any official school, those deeds will not be accepted. So is in the case of Islam also. Islam says, first you are supposed to get yourself affiliated with Islam. Inna Deena Indallahi Islam. The religion is only Islam. One thing. وَمَنْ يَبْتَغِي غَيْرَ الْإِسْلَامِ دِينًا فَلَنْ يُقْبَلَ مِنْهُ. This is the second verse. Both verses exist in Surah Al Imran. If a person is associated with any other religion other than Islam, nothing will be accepted from him. Arab is not a place for such a person. In this modern world, in this age of information technology, when a person can access to internet and he can get knowledge about each and everything, he is not in position to get some information about Islam. Okay. If you suppose he is in such a position, he is not in position to get any information about Islam, okay, then he will be Nara. He will not be punished. Either even if he is gay or something else. Even then. But he will be in Nara. No question of paradise. I don't know to what extent I managed to clear this, but at least the concept of Islam is this. وَمَنْ يَبْتَغِي غَيْرَ الْإِسْلَامِ دِينًا فَلَنْ يُقْبَلَ مِنْهُ. So if they go to Arab, they can't go to heaven. Why? I have already explained. What if a Muslim who does not? What if a Muslim who does not wear a hijab? I think the question is about the girls, I think. Of course. Or celebrate important Muslim events. That does good. If a Muslim that doesn't follow the rules goes to hell, even if that Muslim was kind and helpful to people. If a person is mu'min, in the case of mu'min, if a person is not namazi, for example, definitely he will be punished. He will be punished for a certain period of time. But if he is a mu'min, he will be given a chance to go inside the paradise. Definitely the punishment will be over and then he will be a Jannati. Not before that. So in the case of a girl who is not observing hijab, or a person who is not fasting, or a person who is not paying the religious levy, khums and zakat. Please have some light as to what is the responsibility of a living person towards the dead parents and relative to move them above in the position and status. Thanks. Okay. There is a concept of Isal Sawab. The concept of Isal Sawab. A person can send some gifts from this world to the people who have already passed away. This concept of Isal Sawab does exist in the majority of the sects of Islam. For example, Shias and the Barelvis and the moderate Sunnis. But the extreme Wahhabis do not believe in this concept. Isal Sawab can be of many types. For example, you do some charity and you can offer the sawab of that charity to your parents. You can pay the fee of a deserving student, and you can offer the sawab of that contribution to your parents. You can contribute in this project or any other project, a good project, and then you can offer the sawab of that contribution to your parents. If you are a Muslim and your hand is cut off, after that will you get your hand back? Yes, inshallah. If a kafir fights for Muslims' right and he dies because of it, does he and will he go to heaven or not? Why he was not a mu'min? Why he was not a mu'min? When he knows about Muslims, why he does not know about Islam? When he knows about mu'min, why he does not know anything about Iman? Okay, he has done a good job. He has done a good job. If he has supported any Muslim or any masoom, an innocent person, then he has done a good job. But this can result in blessing in this world. This can result in minimizing the punishment that he is going to face because of remaining kafir in this world. But as far as going inside the paradise is concerned, he must be a mu'min.
We have a question on the floor.
Maazab, you mentioned in your speech that on the Day of Judgment...
Yes, it's the first.
You mentioned in your speech that on the Day of Judgment that the book of deeds, the Namaya Amal, will be given in either the right hand or the left hand, and if a person has done more good, it will be given in the right hand. We also see parallels when, for example, when we were doing wudu, you're supposed to start with your right hand. Why is this emphasis on the right hand instead of the left?
It is symbolic. Very honestly, it is symbolic. Even in our general conversation, we say right wing and left wing. In Urdu, it is said daएं बाजू की जमात and बाएं बाजू की जमात. So it is symbolic. It is symbolic. It is a symbol that a person who is successful, he will be given his Nama Amal in his right hand. Right hand is a symbol. Left hand is a symbol. It's not more than that. Why does someone have to do good, and why should he be punished for not doing good? Now, there are many laws in Canada. If I want to live in Canada, even for 16 days, I am supposed to live according to the rules and regulations of the Canadian government. If I don't want to follow the rules and regulations of Canadian government, the Canadian government will not give me the right to live in this territory. And what about God? The Canadian government is not everlasting government, evergreen government. No, it will end someday. And what about the rules and regulations of Almighty Allah? Does he not have any right on us? Of course. He has created us and we are servants of Almighty, and he can ask for the duties and responsibilities that he feels are good and in benefit of us. Kafi hai?
Any more questions?
Allahumma salli.
Thank you very much.